All right, we're starting this one off easy because all I'm doing is using this butcher block restore on this giant leaf bowl. You guys saw this in a past thrift haul. But I just wanted to show how minimal work can make such a huge difference, and this required next to no time. It's like these old, the old wooden turned bowls and things like that. You can just zhuzh them up with hemp oil. This is butcher block oil. Anything that's kind of food safe that you can trust. I highly recommend doing this because it takes out all the scratches and really refreshes the wood. It's amazing. For everything else that's going to get painted, I'm of course going to give it a good clean, wipe down, and get it prepped for paint. A couple things were a little shiny and needed a little bit of sanding, but most of it was pretty rough surfaces, so I didn't have to worry too much about that. When I'm doing these batches, I like to work with minimal paint colors just because it goes a lot faster. You could do a one and done color, and that's fine too, but I get really bored very easily, so I find it hard for me to just choose one color. So I'll grab out like 2 or 3, and I find that I'm comfortable doing that, and it still makes the process go by pretty quickly. This is the same blue that I had mixed up previously. I'm just using it up now. This is the one that I used on the French style bed. And so I've got quite a bit left, and I can just use it on these smalls, and it'll go good coming up for spring. Most of these get 2 coats of a base coat if I'm doing it, and especially if it's a slick surface, it needs that extra stuff. Anything that's raw wood or near raw wood, you can sometimes get away with just doing 1 coat depending on the paint that you're using and how much coverage it gives you. So even though I do have those multiple colors out, I am sticking with 1 color at a time. So I'm doing all the pieces that I think I want this blue color, and then when I'm ready, I can switch. That way it's still kind of like an assembly line, and these ones can be drying while I'm using the next color, and so on and so forth. Keeping up with the kind of spring feeling, I found this soft pink in my stash. I hardly ever use pinks. It's not one of my favorites. I don't dislike it to look at it. It's just not one of the things I typically go for. But it's kind of nice for smalls because I feel like you can kind of get away with doing, pops of pink places. And it's a pretty trendy color right now. Again, not one of the things that I gravitate towards, but it's great. Valentine's is coming up, spring, all that, so it'll kind of fit in here. So I'm just choosing to do a few pieces in this soft pink color. And then also it's inspired me because I think it goes really nice with this blue, and so I can kind of do some layering things with it as well. So as I said, I can do some layering stuff here. I'm just doing kind of a quick dry brush on the shelf. I'm going to do several layers on this just because I want this to look much older. Just this particular shelf because it reminds me of the other shelf that I have, and I really like the style of it. It's got like those curvy legs and I want it to go. So that's what I did here. And then for the 2 candlesticks, I've done a set of almost pink, purpley, brown candlesticks before. They sold really, really quickly. So I'm going to do something similar, not quite the same color palette, but I feel like if you ground the pink with a little bit of brown, which sounds hideous, however, it just kind of grounds it and makes it fit in to a few more seasons instead of just being like, oh, a Valentine's thing. So for the candles, I'm essentially just blending the brown into the pink. This is very, very simple to do because it's a small work area, which is kind of nice, much nicer than, say, a dresser. You guys know I've done a ton of videos on blending. It's one of my most favorite things to do because it just adds something special that you just can't have with a solid color. So you can do 2 brushes. I'm blending the brown up into the pink. I can kind of go back and forth. If you're one of those people that needs an extra brush, use an extra brush. I have a ton of different ways to blend, and it all is either how I feel or how the paint's working that day, or just whatever mood strikes is kind of how I go with it. Whatever's going to give me the best look at the end, that's the route that I want to take for that specific piece. But these are really nice because they're so small and you can go really quick around them. So this piece, I was unsure about what I was going to do with it. And then I remembered the other shelf that I had that I just really loved the finish on. So it looks like I'm doing a full coat of paint here, only I'm putting it down, making sure all the low points are completely covered in paint. And then we're going to wipe it back while it's still wet, because I want that to kind of be like a whitewash, only it's much thicker than a whitewash. This is of course blue as well, but you know what I mean. So it's much thicker and it sits down a lot, I don't want to say harsher, but richer than if it was just a plain whitewash. Plus this is a fairly slick surface, so I want more paint to sit down in those low areas, and then we'll pop it later as we go. Okay, this part seems a little weird because the shelf started out brown and then I'm going to add more brown, but it's only because I want this color to show through, and like I said, I want it to look like it has many, many layers on here. So I'm just adding some more brown on here. It's also going to be covered up, but then I'll have more parts peeking through. I can't have the original brown peek through because it is like a plasticky resin. So I want actual paint showing through. So that's why I'm doing this here. And then I'm obviously not fully covering it, but we're going to go back in with the blue and the pink again, and all will be right with the world. I promise this one turns out. So that paint is still a little bit wet, and I'm going back in with the pink, and this is softening it up, still giving the pink tones without being too much pink. And again, it's just layers. So you can see some of the dark brown still, some of the light pink, but then also a mix of the two. And it softens everything, and then I'll add the blue again. Now typically on stuff like this, I would dry brush with a white, but again, since I already have the pink out and we're going for like the springy vibes, I'm just going to use the light pink and have that be the dry brush on the high points. This isn't perfectly dry, this isn't the best brush for this, but if you lay the flat brushes on their sides, they do a pretty good job at dry brushing without having it be too aggressive on there. So this worked out well, and I didn't want to dirty up another brush. So this is where we were at, and I think this one turned out really cute. Now we're going back to the shelf, and I'm adding the blue back to it. So this is the final color I want the piece to look, but again, we're not doing a pristine paint job on it. I am just getting it on there, kind of slapping it on even, so that I have everything underneath showing through as well. I want it to look like many, many layers of paint. And since I still had that pink brush out, I'm just going to hit the high points with the pink on this as well. And then we'll add a little bit of gold later. So the paint is mostly dry, but not perfectly dry. So you'll get some spots that are kind of mixing and some spots that are fully dry and the pink just lays on top. I didn't anticipate using this color this week. I was trying to, you know, step outside of my comfort zone, but this piece was just screaming for the gray, and I had to do it. There's so much detail in this. I wanted it to be the dark gray and how I do the gold on it, and I felt like it was the way to go. So I did bust out an extra color that was probably unnecessary, but I'm really happy I did because this thing turned out amazing. Now the other shelf, which was just kind of a plain wooden shelf, I just did the solid blue and I did some stenciling on top. I was initially going to do the golden stamps, how I did with the other shelves that already sold, but I was like, you know what, I've got a cute stencil, I'll do stenciling on this one and see how I like it. I will say that I liked the stamps better, but this turned out cute and I'm still happy with it. So this here is just the Rust-Oleum metallic champagne gold. I'm just hitting high points with this and it looks so lovely. I'm very happy that I went ahead and did the dark gray with this because, man, it just has my heart so much. Having that like bright metallic pop on the dark gray is lovely. So the candlesticks, I didn't show, but I did do 2 rounds of the pink and brown just to have 2 coats of paint on there. They were a very slick surface, so I wanted to make sure I got enough coverage. And then I'm just taking that same gold and hitting the high points. These have a really cool scroll around them with a few fleur-de-lis, and the legs are kind of fancy too, so I wanted to make sure that those elements really popped. And then I also just kind of did some dry brushing with the gold on it as well. And these ones turned out super cute. And of course, same things with these owls. I feel like pink and gold is just such a good color combination. Usually I like warm and cool colors, but I don't know. These are cute. I'm really pleased with them. And I could totally see them in like a little girl's room, like a fancy little girl. So adorable. Again, same gold, just hitting high points. I'm not actually hitting all the high points in this. I'm doing very sporadic because I already have the pink on there and I don't actually want to cover that up. I just want to have one extra layer on here. So you can see a little bit. It's not too much. You know, we're Goldilocks in it today. And then same thing on the shelf because we have all those multiple layers of colors. I'm doing some of the gold on here, not covering everything up, just adding a few spots here and there and making sure that it's highlighted, has that extra effect, but I want it to look very, very lived in. So for this next piece, the only reason I'm adding some of this gold on this one is to tone it because it had that really, really orangey gold originally. And that's why I wanted to do the wash over it. I thought it was shiny enough to work and it did. I think it looks lovely, but still just a little too much orange was coming through, so I'm just toning it back a little bit with the gold. I didn't need to do it everywhere, but just on certain parts where I was like, I don't like it here. So that's all that this was doing. So to seal everything, I'm going to be using wax today. It's one of my favorite things to do with smalls because I'm not worried about it touching anything afterwards, and I have so many things out. I feel like it's easier to do it like this. The first go round, I'm going to be using the dark antiquing wax, which is great. I get it on, wipe it off, all is right with the world, and it gives it a little bit of depth and makes it look a little bit older, which is what I like. So I'll go around and do all those pieces with the dark antiquing wax. And then I also pulled out my silver wax. So this does have a little bit of a sheen to it, but it is nothing like a gilding wax. So this still seals pieces, fully cures hard, all the things, but it just has just the slightest shimmer and also gives off like the gray hue if you've used gray wax before. This is just lovely, and instead of dulling things down like the antiquing wax, it just kind of gives a tint. And again, you can see a little bit of sheen, but it's just not too much. It is so lovely, and I don't use this enough. I have copper ones and the gold, and there's several of them. And of course I have blues and purples and things like that. But if you're somebody who has a stash like me of these colored waxes and you don't use them frequently enough, it's really pleasant to pull them out after you haven't used them in a while and be like, oh yeah, these are great. I really love them. Chalk Mountain has like, I don't know, they have so many different colored waxes and they're all lovely and they have great wax. So if you've forgotten about colored waxes, just pull them out. Oh hi, Taryn here with Elegant Upgrades, and we've got some finished pieces. I know all of them out, but I have several that I really liked. I wanted to change things up a bit because you guys know I'm horrendous at making sure that I have things done in an appropriate amount of time. Like when you do Christmas stuff, you need to have Christmas stuff done like in November so that things can be shipped out to arrive for Christmas. And I just never do that. I'm just like, oh, it's Christmas time, now we should do Christmas things, which you can't. It doesn't work that way. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go with the pink. We're gonna try and get some like Valentine's-y type stuff going on. And then I wanted to choose the like light pink and kind of go with the more neutral browns and stuff because I feel like this can be used year round because it's lovely. It's just a pretty neutrally with a hint of pink. And so great for Valentine's, but also all the time. That was kind of where my mind was at with this one. So I feel like I'm trying to get ahead, but we'll see. And the same with these little owls. I just have the one out right now, but super cute little pink and gold owls. And then of course I did the antiquing wax. This is one of my favorite finishes. I love this. It's because of that other shelf that I found, and I'd seen a couple pictures of other things that were just kind of really old, and I love that they had done, it was like a metallic, and then they did the wash over the top of the metallic, and I thought it was so lovely. So this took me a while to do because I wasn't sure the route I was going to take it because it was that weird orangey coppery color. But so with the wash over it, and then once I did the wash, I also just hit a few high points with some gold, just tone back some of the other kind of more orangey bits, and then I sealed it in the silver wax, and I think that just looks so cool. I love it. I'm going to be doing this finish quite a bit. And then this guy turned out also just fabulously. It's the similar how I do the gray with the gold high points, but I sealed it also in the silver wax. Now this whole thing looks just super metallic and amazing, and I am so in love with it. So this will be going on more stuff too. Kind of that's the fun with it, when you find something that you really love and then you can kind of go back to it and move around a bit. But yeah, just, you know, pulling in some like lighter blues. I think this thing is having a lot of impact on me because I'm seeing it all the time. I'm like, I just really like that. So I'm gonna keep doing stuff with it. This guy is still here. Haven't done anything with it yet because I still haven't decided. I don't know. Haven't decided that route, but we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. Anyways, thank you guys so much for following along. Thanks for being here. I hope you were inspired by some new techniques and color choices. And guys, remember about the colored waxes. I always forget about them. I have a drawer full of tons of colored waxes, and I almost never do the silver. I've done gold a couple times and copper a couple times, but I just kind of forget about them. But there's blues and purples and reds and so many different colors of waxes that we could be utilizing, and I just forget. And I'm like, let's do clear or white or the antique one. So anyways, I will see you guys next time.